Welcome to the Deep Dive, the dedicated analysis space where we synthesize vast stacks of source material into actionable, resonant knowledge. Our mission today centers on a giant of modern design and global commerce, Giorgio Armani. We are distilling the life, the work, and the truly unprecedented influence of a figure whose span from 1934 to 2025 perfectly encapsulated the transition of high fashion from niche artistry to global lifestyle enterprise. When you analyze the architects of contemporary elegance and power dressing, the name Giorgio Armani is just inescapable. He is recognized universally as one of the most influential designers. And what we have gathered in our material really illuminates the exact process by which he built that staggering multi-industry reach. We're talking about a transformation that goes far beyond just designing a successful garment.
Exactly. If we step back and look at the trajectory our sources present, they illustrate Armani not just as a remarkable gifted creative, but as a deeply astute business strategist, a potent cultural force, and perhaps most notably, an ethical pioneer in an industry notoriously slow to adopt moral standards. We're examining how he fundamentally redefined what elegance meant, moving it from rigid tradition to a fluid modernity, and how he then scaled that vision into a global empire that touched everything from clothing production to the world's tallest buildings.
Okay, let's establish the central design concept right away because it's the physical, tangible idea that launched everything. He is known for introducing and championing the minimalist, deconstructed silhouette. Specifically, we're talking about jackets and suits that were softened, stripped down, and redefined both masculine and feminine elegance into a supremely contemporary form. That loose, almost casual structure became the Armani signature. To truly grasp the vision of the man who became known as King Giorgio, we must begin at his earliest roots. He was born on July 11th, 1934 in Piacenza, then part of the Kingdom of Italy. And crucially, his beginnings were modest, spent growing up amidst the scarcity and chaos of World War II.
The sources really emphasize that his experience of wartime poverty and instability fundamentally shaped his later design philosophy and, his business austerity.
Yeah.
This was not a privileged entry into the world. What's particularly traumatic, as noted in several biographies, is the direct impact of the war on his youth. He suffered a severe burn injury, and even more tragically, a close friend was killed by the detonation of an unexploded artillery shell. These traumas they instilled a deep sense of resilience, but also a precise appreciation for structural integrity and human vulnerability. You can see it in his work.
It's wild to consider that his initial ambition was entirely disconnected from the world of fabric and runway shows. He was aiming for a career in medicine. We learned that this decision was heavily inspired by A.J. Cronin's seminal novel about medical ethics, The Citadel. This led him to enroll in the Department of Medicine at the University of Milan. The precision, the demand for excellence, and the understanding of the human body that medicine requires.
You can see how that aesthetic translated later into his tailoring.
Exactly.
That's a crucial analytical connection. The medical path requires rigor and, structural knowledge, traits that would define his jackets. However, after 3 years in 1953, he made a definitive choice to leave the university. He subsequently joined the Italian army, and due to his existing medical training, he was assigned to the military hospital in Verona. While stationed there, he experienced the local culture, including attending shows at the historic arena. This entire experience seems to have convinced him that his future lay in aesthetics and culture, not in clinical practice.
So he makes this pivot, and his entry into the fashion world begins in 1957, but he truly started from the ground up. He took a job as a window dresser and sales clerk at La Rinascente, which was Milan's leading upscale department store. This was his true schooling in commerce and consumer desire.
That period at La Rinascente was indispensable. It provided him with the foundation of modern marketing. His initial role as a window dresser meant he was responsible for presenting the newest concepts in clothing to the public. The sources specifically highlight his early exposure to the innovative textiles, clothing, and home furnishings of the Finnish company, Marimekko.
Marimekko, right, they were huge.
Huge, and they were redefining functional modern design with bold prints and simple shapes. This exposure was a catalyst, showing him how fashion could be functional, democratic, and conceptually minimalist, which, strongly influenced his later designs.
And he didn't stay locked in window dressing. He shifted into a seller role in the menswear department. This move was pivotal because it put him directly in front of the consumer. He was getting critical, first-hand knowledge of the commercial aspects of the fashion industry, understanding market trends, customer psychology, and what makes people actually open their wallets. This wasn't just a job, it was his professional training ground.
Right, and by the mid-1960s, having mastered the retail side, His design abilities were recognized, leading him to transition to designing menswear for Nino Cerruti. But this was an incredibly demanding period. For the next decade, while working for Cerruti, Armani also intensely freelanced, contributing designs to as many as 10 manufacturers simultaneously.
10 at once.
10 at once. This workload forced him to synthesize various house aesthetics while rapidly honing his own signature style, achieving clarity and speed in his design process.
This brings us to the crucial relationship that enabled his transition from high-level freelancer to independent entrepreneur. In the late 1960s, he met Sergio Gagliotti, an architectural draftsman. This was the inception of a powerful, long-lasting personal and professional partnership.
Gagliotti was the essential catalyst for the business. While Armani had the design talent and the work ethic, Gagliotti had the commercial vision and the persuasion. The sources make it clear that it was Gagliotti who pushed him out of the safe world of freelancing. In 1973, Gagliotti persuaded Armani to formally open a freelance design office in Milan at 37 Corso Venezia. This move instantly professionalized his operation.
And that professionalization led to an explosion of work. They took on extensive contracts for multiple fashion houses, including important names like Allegri, Hilton, and Gibeau. But the real breakthrough came on the runway.
Precisely. International acknowledgement was swift. His runway shows at the prestigious Sala Bianca and the Pitti Palace in Florence quickly garnered critical attention from the fashion press. This early exposure allowed Armani to secure the necessary buzz and initial capital that paved the way for the momentous step he took 2 years later, the founding of his own house.
With the foundation of his vision secure and Gagliotti handling the organizational side, the next logical step was the launch of his own company. Giorgio Armani S.p.A. was formally established on July 24, 1975, with Sergio Gagliotti as his founding partner.
And momentum was immediate. That same year, in October 1975, he presented his inaugural men's ready-to-wear collection for spring-summer 1976, followed instantly by a women's line. The brand was officially born. However, the true genius move, the decision that allowed this artistic vision to scale into an empire, was a groundbreaking business agreement that followed 3 years later.
Let's look at the operational strategy. The GFT agreement in 1978 with Gruppo Finanziario Tessile. This is not just a footnote, this is a paradigm shift in how luxury fashion operated. GFT was a major textile and manufacturing power.
This agreement redefined the economics of luxury. Traditionally, high fashion was produced slowly, exclusively, almost by hand expensive, and difficult to scale. The GFT agreement allowed Armani to shift the production of his luxury ready-to-wear into a highly efficient industrialized manufacturing environment. Crucially, though, the agreement was structured so that Armani retained extremely close personal supervision over the entire production process. He did not sacrifice quality for volume, he demanded both.
So was GFT his necessary evil or his genius stroke? Because that sounds like a potential recipe for losing control of the brand's aesthetic integrity just to chase scale.
It was absolutely a genius stroke. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this innovative relationship bridged the historic gap between exclusive, slow couture and fast, mass production without the typical loss of quality control. The ability to guarantee high-end finishing and precise tailoring while leveraging industrial manufacturing capacity is what allowed Armani to rapidly globalize and satisfy the surging international demand his unique style had created. It provided the structure for the empire.
And globalization was instantaneous. In 1979, the Giorgio Armani Corporation was founded specifically to manage production for the massive American market, and he introduced the core main line for men and women there. This was followed by a rapid, intentional strategy of brand diversification throughout the late 70s and early 80s.
The sources confirm he was a master of tiered branding early on. The company quickly launched various product lines. GA La Collezione offered luxury items at a price point just below the main line, and he capitalized on accessories with Giorgio Armani underwear and swimwear and Giorgio Armani accessories. Then came the major licensing deals, most notably the pivotal agreement with L'Oreal for perfumes and cosmetics, establishing the highly successful Armani Beauty division.
He also preemptively captured the future consumer. Recognizing that luxury brands needed a youthful pipeline, he launched key diffusion lines: Armani Junior, Armani Jeans, and the crucial Emporio Armani. What was the specific strategic goal behind Emporio?
The strategy behind Emporio Armani was explicitly defined: to develop a stylish, high-quality product that retained the core stylistic integrity of the main line, but offered it at a significantly more accessible, younger price point. This wasn't merely cheaper. It was a defined sub-brand meant to capture a demographic that aspired to but couldn't yet afford the mainline suit. This early adoption of market segmentation was, well, revolutionary among high Italian fashion houses.
He was completely focused on connecting with the consumer directly. We learn that his business philosophy mandated the use of unconventional advertising methods to reach the end user directly, rather than relying solely on the established and sometimes insular traditional fashion channels and magazines. This direct connection accelerated brand recognition outside the elite fashion bubble.
Now let's turn back to the physical innovation, the style that truly revolutionized global dress. The minimalist and deconstructed jacket and suit. We've used that term repeatedly, but what did this actually entail on a technical material level?
That technical detail is essential. How did he take the stiff traditional suit, the uniform of institutional power, and transform it?
He essentially stripped it down and made it fluid. The traditional men's suit, especially Italian tailoring, relied on heavy internal structure, thick canvas, extensive inner lining, and rigid, sculpted shoulder pads. Armani dramatically reduced or completely removed these internal components. He used softer, less traditional fabrics like linen, jersey, or even washed silks for professional wear.
So it was all about subtraction.
Exactly. By removing the canvas and the padding, the jacket draped and moved with the wearer's body, rather than forcing the body into a rigid shape. For men, this symbolized a more relaxed, modern masculinity. But for women, this innovation was truly empowering. It allowed women to wear traditionally formal, powerful attire, the suit, in the professional workplace, but with a fluidity and a softness that wasn't costume-like. It was polished, yet comfortable. This fundamental change earned him the title of fashion's master of the power suit from the New York Times, cementing the idea that his work loosened the restrictions of traditional suit wear, offering a fluid and less rigid expression of power and elegance.
That shift from stiff uniform to fluid expression of professional power was arguably one of the most significant sociological fashion changes of the 1980s. Recognizing that his aesthetic was fundamentally cinematic, Giorgio Armani saw the film industry not just as a marketing tool, but as a deep well of creative stimulus and an unparalleled global billboard. This was a strategic alliance formed very early on.
The defining moment, the one that projected the Armani name beyond Italy in the elite fashion press, came in 1980 with Paul Schrader's film, American Gigolo. Armani was deeply involved, designing the entire wardrobe for Richard Gere's character, Julian Kai. This film was a 90-minute advertisement for the new, modern, aspirational lifestyle embodied by the Armani aesthetic.
And the sources detail the specific moment that became truly iconic globally. The scene where Julian Kay meticulously lays out his wardrobe before selecting an outfit. The camera focuses sharply as he yanks open a drawer filled with perfectly folded, labeled Armani shirts. The labels are visible, the colors are rich, and the sheer volume of immaculate, precise clothing signaled an entirely new level of aspirational wealth and sophisticated taste to an international audience.
It shifted the perception of the suit. It wasn't just corporate attire anymore. It was an object of desire, a tool of seduction and self-expression. The brand was cemented internationally, and this success paved the way for deep, lasting collaboration with Hollywood. He designed costumes for over 100 films throughout his career, including major cultural touchstones like Brian De Palma's The Untouchables in 1987. His connection to cinema was symbiotic. Hollywood supplied the platform, and Armani supplied the style definition for the modern protagonist.
Yet, 1985 brought professional peak performance alongside immense personal devastation. We must acknowledge the tragic death of his partner, Sergio Gagliotti, who passed away from complications related to AIDS. This was the personal foundation of the business, suddenly shattered.
This was a profound, defining tragedy. Armani often reflected on this loss, describing his inability to prevent Gagliotti's death as the greatest failure of his entire career. However, he also consistently credited Gagliotti with empowering him both creatively and financially to pursue the business strategy of becoming an independent house. Gagliotti was the initial commercial risk-taker. His death forced Armani, the meticulous designer, to fully step into the role of CEO and strategist, dramatically increasing his business acumen out of sheer necessity.
Following this profound loss, Armani demonstrated remarkable resilience and continued aggressive global expansion. He established Armani Japan and introduced the crucial AX Armani exchange line in 1991.
AX Armani Exchange represented an even more aggressive move toward mass-market accessibility than Emporio. It was explicitly created to target the younger American mass market, focused on casual, foundational, everyday clothing like t-shirts, baseball caps, and simplified denim. AX was a shrewd business decision. It allowed the company to generate huge sales volume and revenue by capitalizing on the name recognition in a market segment that Italian high fashion traditionally ignored, serving as a financial engine for the main line.
His influence transcended fashion through consistent, high-profile cultural collaborations. The legendary musician Eric Clapton, a longtime friend, composed music specifically for Armani fashion shows and was invariably dressed in Armani. This intertwining of music, fashion, and lifestyle accelerated brand legitimacy.
The collaborations became business partnerships, too. In 1996, Clapton opened 2 Emporio Armani stores in New York City. The blurring of celebrity endorsement and genuine partnership was key. Furthermore, the global strategy pivoted hard toward Asian markets, recognizing their burgeoning economic power. He broke into the Chinese market, opening a small initial shop in Beijing in 1998, followed by a major Shanghai flagship store in 2004, with ambitious plans targeting 40 stores by 2011.
His work wasn't just commercially successful, it was receiving serious artistic and intellectual validation. The Oxford Art Journal specifically noted the influence of Japanese design philosophy on some of his work, highlighting his willingness to draw inspiration from international non-Western aesthetics, particularly the quiet minimalism of Japanese architecture and textiles.
And this journey culminated in perhaps the most significant institutional validation of his career in the early 2000s. The Guggenheim Museum in New York hosted a major retrospective exhibition of Armani's work. This was a critical milestone. It was the first such honor given to a living designer. The attendance numbers underscore its importance, averaging a staggering 29,000 visitors per week.
That exhibition fundamentally shifted the public dialogue, moving his work from the category of mere clothing into the realm of art and cultural history. It cemented the idea that Armani was a structural designer whose aesthetic principles deserved museum-level preservation and academic study, much like architects or sculptors. As his empire matured, Armani began to use his formidable platform to advocate for crucial ethical standards within the industry, marking him as a genuine and rare pioneer in this space.
This commitment was catalyzed by a tragic and sorrowful event in 2006. The sources recount the death of model Anna Carolina Reston, who had worked for his company and, sadly, succumbed to anorexia nervosa. This deeply affected the entire fashion world, forcing a confrontation with the industry's harmful standards of extreme thinness.
His response was immediate, decisive, and industry-defining. In 2007, Armani took a landmark step, becoming the very first designer to implement a strict policy banning models with a body mass index, or BMI, under 18 from participating in his shows. This was a crucial, measurable policy change aimed squarely at promoting healthier body standards within a competitive and often destructive industry.
This focus on responsibility extended to environmental issues as well. In 2011, he accepted Livia Giugioli-Firth's high-profile Green Carpet Challenge. This initiative aimed to showcase sustainable fashion design from recycled materials and ethically sourced fabrics. For the challenge, Armani designed both a spectacular dress for Firth and a matching tuxedo for her then-husband, actor Colin Firth, demonstrating that luxury and environmental responsibility were not mutually exclusive.
The later phase of his career was dominated by phenomenal brand diversification into the immersive lifestyle space, moving far beyond traditional fashion. This culminated in the ambitious Armani Hotel collection.
This was the ultimate realization of the brand as a complete experience. In 2005, Giorgio Armani S.p.A. entered a long-term licensing agreement with Emaar Properties PJSC, one of the world's largest real estate developers, to establish a global collection of luxury hotels and resorts. While Emaar handled construction and management, the contract stipulated that Armani retained absolute, non-negotiable creative control.
What does creative control mean when you're designing a skyscraper hotel? It means everything, right down to the towels.
Absolutely. It means the guest is living inside the Armani aesthetic. The flagship property opened in 2010, the Armani Hotel located within the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. It occupied the bottom 39 floors of the world's tallest tower, encompassing 160 guest rooms and suites and 144 luxury residences. Every element, from the wall textures to the light fixtures, was dictated by Armani, utilizing furnishings sourced from his specialized Armani Casa home collection. It was the physical manifestation of his minimalist, sophisticated style in architectural form.
This expansion shows his ability to curate sensory experiences across incredibly diverse sectors. He even ventured into music curation with the Emporio Armani Cafe compilations.
These were not just background music, they were conceptual statements. These were a series of special CD compilations, personally curated by Armani alongside DJ sound designer Matteo Ceccarini. The music featured a mix of underground electronic rhythms and conceptual sounds, designed to provide a cohesive sensory environment within the cafes and stores, enhancing the brand atmosphere. This commitment to curated detail extended even to the most luxurious items. In 2019, he introduced his first fine jewelry collection during Haute Couture Week in Paris.
And the fine jewelry wasn't just an exercise in glittering stones. What were the specific aesthetic references?
The 2022 jewelry collection, named Josephine, was inspired by Josephine de Beauharnais, signaling a reference to historical, understated French elegance. The pieces incorporated highly specific motifs and materials, including paisley patterns, the subtle milky color of chalcedony, and understated gray diamonds. This demonstrated a commitment to historical nuance and textural restraint, even in the most opulent product category.
Beyond luxury and art, sport was a massive and highly visible area of focus for Armani, especially in Italy. He was not just a designer for teams, he became deeply involved as president and supporter of the Olimpia Milano basketball team, which famously won 6 Serie A titles under his tenure.
His sports enthusiasm was personal and public. While he was a known fan of the football club Inter Milan, he specifically cited Olimpia Milano as his favorite sporting venture, because in his view, it helped to unite the city of Milan. This sense of civic pride and commitment was always central to his brand identity.
And his involvement was global and pervasive. He designed custom suits for the England national football team not once but twice, and for players of the London club Chelsea FC beginning in 2007. Crucially, he designed the official uniforms for the Italian Olympic and Paralympic teams for the 2006 Winter Olympics in Turin and again for the 2012 Summer Olympics in London.
He maintained this commitment to his roots, also designing for the football club of his birthplace, Piacenza Calcio, 1919. In his final years, his high-profile partnerships continued, notably becoming the official supplier to the Scuderia Ferrari Formula One team in 2021, providing official and travel ensembles. His final sport partnership design was executed with Juventus.
And finally, his continuing dominance in pop culture ensured visibility across demographics. He forged a very strong partnership with Lady Gaga.
That partnership provided incredible visibility to a younger demographic. He designed many of the most recognizable stage outfits for the pop superstar, including those worn on her record-breaking Monster Ball tour and the subsequent Born This Way Ball tour. He also created her iconic looks for high-profile awards shows like the 52nd Grammy Awards and the 2010 MTV Video Music Awards. His influence, therefore, spanned the most elite levels of institutional art and the most widely consumed global entertainment.
Despite building an empire founded on the projection of a highly specific aesthetic, Armani himself was known as an intensely private man. However, he was candid about his personal life when asked, stating in a Vanity Fair interview that he had maintained relationships with both men and women throughout his life.
The shadow of Sergio Gagliotti continued to loom large, illustrating the deeply personal bedrock of the business. The sources reflect on Armani's comments in 2015, where he spoke about still traveling with Gagliotti's photograph, feeling his spirit linger, stating that he saw Sergio everywhere. This enduring, profound connection shows how the global empire was tethered to a single, deep, personal relationship established decades earlier.
It is also important, when examining his views on public expression and identity, to impartially report a controversial statement he made to the Sunday Times in 2015. He said, "A homosexual man is 100% a man. He doesn't need to dress like a homosexual."
That comment generated substantial discussion at the time, particularly within the fashion industry, which was increasingly embracing gender-fluid and non-traditional presentations of sexuality through clothing. Armani's viewpoint, stemming from an older generation, focused on distinguishing between sexual identity and how gender norms are presented sartorially. His perspective suggested that style should not be prescriptive based on orientation, sparking a dialogue regarding traditional male presentation versus the evolving freedom of expression in the modern fashion world.
Turning to his family structure and the critical matter of the business's future, Armani had no children. However, the organization maintained a tight family structure.
His immediate family members were closely integrated into the business operations. This included his late elder brother Sergio and his younger sister Rosanna, who he famously credited as his muse and for initially introducing him to the world of fashion. His nieces, Silvana and Roberta Armani, and nephew, Andrea Camerana, were all heavily involved in key leadership roles within the business at the time of his death, ensuring a degree of continuity.
As we move to the final chapter, the sources note his declining health in the months leading up to his passing. He missed Milan Fashion Week in June 2025, a significant event as it marked the first time he had not attended his own runway shows in his entire career.
Giorgio Armani died from liver failure at his home in Milan on September 4, 2025, at the age of 91. His lifelong dedication to independence and strategic accumulation had resulted in an estimated net worth of $12.1 billion at the time of his death. The public reaction was one of immense mourning. His public wake, held at the Armani Teatro in Milan, was attended by approximately 15,000 people.
The scale of the reverence for him across Italy was tangible. On September 8th, the day of his private funeral, all Armani stores closed for the afternoon of mourning, including every store across the city of Milan. He was subsequently buried in a private ceremony in his family's chapel in the Piacenza province.
The crucial question of the future structure of the company was immediately addressed. On September 12, his two final wills were released. The instructions within were specific and signaled a necessary, if perhaps reluctant, transition away from total independence. His heirs were explicitly instructed to sell an initial 15% minority stake in his businesses.
And the targets for this sale were highly specific. He gave priority consideration to major corporate entities, LVMH, EssilorLuxottica, or L'Oréal. This list represents the pinnacle of corporate, diversified luxury conglomerate management.
The enduring legacy, however, remains profoundly individualized, despite the future corporate transition. The global reaction was uniformly respectful. Italian Prime Minister Giorgio Armani honored him as a symbol of the best of Italy. French businessman Bernard Arnault, head of LVMH, credited him with creating a unique style and successfully pushing Italian elegance to a global scale.
The comparisons made upon his death placed him in the most exclusive historical context. The BBC stated unequivocally that he revolutionized fashion and argued that no designer had caused such a lasting change in the way people dress since the foundational work of Coco Chanel.
That is immense praise, placing him in the highest historical echelons. Vogue had already recognized his staggering success in 2001, acclaiming him as the most successful designer of Italian origin, and Time reflected that he had forever changed the way people think about clothes. His lifetime commitment earned him the highest honors, including the Officer of the Legion of Honor in 2008 and the Knight Grand Cross of the Order of Merit of the Italian Republic in 2021.
So, what does this comprehensive review of the material ultimately show? We've traced a remarkable journey, from a childhood defined by wartime poverty and a detour through medical school, to pioneering the deconstructed suit, dominating Hollywood's sartorial landscape, and setting concrete ethical standards in the modeling industry by banning underweight models and ultimately building a luxury lifestyle empire that includes everything from fine jewelry to curated music and skyscrapers.
It forces us to acknowledge the extraordinary complexity of sustaining a legacy built on two fundamentally conflicting principles: intensely personal relationships and creative vision on one hand, and aggressive, groundbreaking business strategy like the GFT agreement and widespread diversification on the other. What's most fascinating here is how this innate ability to loosen the strictures of traditional suit wear structurally paralleled his commercial ability to dismantle barriers between high-fashion exclusivity and broad commercial appeal.
That structural duality, art versus commerce, is truly the key to understanding his 50-year reign.
It is. This raises an important question for you to consider. Based on his final instruction to sell a minority stake to one of the giant conglomerates, companies like LVMH or L'Oréal, consider what it means for a globally recognized, intensely personal fashion brand, one often cited as fine art, to begin its structural transition into the hands of a broader corporate entity. Can a highly individualized, singular vision of a creator like Armani truly be maintained once the corporate structure and the demands of global conglomerate management take priority? Or is this simply the natural, inevitable evolution of a highly successful 50-year empire?